Hello and welcome to episode 3 of John Collects Stamps. Today's video is going to be slightly different than my previous videos in that it's not going to be me showing you what I have in my stock books or in my hands. It's going to take the form of a slideshow, and I'm going to be talking about the Great Britain Machin stamps and regional issues. This is going to be in two parts. This is part 1. And this is going to cover 1967 through to probably the early 2000s. And without further ado, let's crack on with the slideshow. Arnold Machin. Arnold Machin is the designer of the image that is used on the Machin stamps. He was born in 1911 in Stoke-on-Trent in England. He was an artist, a sculptor, coin and stamp designer. He trained as an apprentice in the pottery industry. It was a pottery called Minton, and that was around the Staffordshire area of Britain. If you're not familiar with British geography, north of the Midlands and before you get up north to Lancashire and Cheshire, there's the area known as Staffordshire. And this is where the pottery industry of Great Britain was primarily based. And this is where Arnold Machin would have worked. He studied at the Royal College of Art in London. Interestingly, he was imprisoned in World War II as a conscientious objector. In 1964, he was selected to design a new effigy for use on coinage, featuring a new image of Queen Elizabeth, and that was going to be used on British coins and some Commonwealth coins. And in 1966 his design, a sculpture he made in bas relief of the Queen in profile, was selected to be the design for the new Great Britain definitive stamps, and that was a stamp to replace the earlier Wilding series that had been in use since 1952. So it was introduced in 1967. If you look at the slide here, up at the top there, in the top right, we've got a lilac, threepenny lilac Wilding. So that portrait of the Queen was a photograph taken by Dorothy Wilding, hence the name of the stamps, known as the Wildings. And those photographs were taken very shortly after the death of George VI in early 1952, and that was the image that had been used on all British stamps up until the mid-60s. It was even on the commemorative stamps until it was replaced by a cameo profile of the Queen, a lot smaller, and gave a lot more flexibility to the stamp designers working with the commemoratives. So it was introduced in 1967 using pre-decimal currency. The Machin stamp is still in use today. We're now 55 years later, and the design is still current. We don't have any definitive stamps issued for King Charles III at this time, and I suspect we won't get those until the coronation in May 2023. So the current crop of Machins, which are the self-adhesive data matrix Machins, they'll still be in use, and probably until stocks deplete and are then replaced and replenished by the new King Charles definitive stamps. To date, there are over 350 billion Machins printed, probably the most reproduced piece of artwork in the world, and I think it's an absolute classic. I love the design of the Machins. I started collecting these seriously when I started building my full collection round about 2010. and I'm still searching for certain issues. I've not filled all the gaps. It's the hardest part for me as a collector is getting a definitive list of, what's out there and what catalogue numbers to collect. And unfortunately, the Stanley Gibbons catalogue doesn't. It probably does help if you've got the specialised editions, but they're rather an expensive set of books, and it's over 3 volumes for the decimal stamps of Queen Elizabeth, and that's not on my budget at the moment. So piecing together using the Collect British Stamps and the other Stanley Gibbons catalogue that I have, the Great Britain, it's been a labour of love trying to get a full list of all the catalogue numbers. I'm slowly but surely getting there, and I'm trying to organise my collection around that list. So as you can see on the slide here, we've got 2 Machin designs at the bottom. The one on the left is the 1967 four-penny pre-decimal issue. That was the postal rates at the time, and I think they selected the colour because it kind of looked like the penny black, and in fact the Queen is wearing the same diadem, the crown, that was also worn by Queen Victoria on the penny black stamp. And next to that you can see the design is exactly the same. The only thing that's changed is the rates has now been represented in decimal pence on the halfpenny turquoise there. So a closer look at the pre-decimal issues. Issued in 1967, there were 23 separate stamps ranging from a halfpenny through to 1 shilling and 9p. The Stanley Gibbons catalogue numbers for these are SG723 to SG744. I know that maths doesn't quite add up to 23, but there is a 743 and the 743A, the 1 and 6, the blue one. There are 2 versions of that, which is that's the missing catalogue number in that numerical sequence. Like I said, there is a 743A and a 743. These stamps used phosphor bands on certain issues, and you can actually see it on some of these. The 1 and 6, you can see the phosphor band down the side, and also on the 1 and 9. And that's a trend that continued through into the decimal issues. Initially, all Machins were printed by Harrison and Sons, but there was a set of higher values, these 4 here on the right, and these were printed by Bradbury Wilkinson, and these were printed in Talio. These were actually engraved. So these came in the 2 and 6, the 5 shilling, the 10 shilling, and the £1. Prior to the release of the decimal issues, the same design was used for 4 values of 10p, 20p, 50p and £1 in the decimal currency, printed again by Bradbury Wilkinson, and they have catalogue numbers here 829, SG829 to SG831B. Again, there's one of your catalogue numbers there where they had an 831 and an 831B. So that then takes us through to 1970s and the decimal era. So Britain went to the decimal system in 1971 in February. So the old pound, shilling and pence were no longer in use, and we'd adopted the 100 pence equals £1. currency model, which I've got to say it's a lot more easy to work out than the old imperial one. I do actually understand the imperial mechanism, where there were 20 shillings in a pound and there were 12 pennies in a shilling, but that's only because when I was a kid I had a cash register, a toy, that had been my sister's, and my sister grew up in the pre-decimal era. She's a bit older than me. I was born in 1970, and it had all plastic coins of the imperial currency. So when I was playing with this toy, I understood what all the different currencies were. So I do actually understand the old pound, shilling and pence. Yeah, I've got a vivid memory of that toy. It's funny how, just thinking of stamps makes you think of something like that from your childhood. But yeah, happy times. So again, there's a vast array of stamps produced during the 70s. Again, initially printed by Harrison and Sons, up until around about 1980, when other printers were brought on board. It was mainly due to the demand. Harrison and Sons couldn't keep up with the demand for stamps, so Quester and Waddington, I think, were the first two that were brought on line to assist with printing of the Machin designs. There's several issues with the same denomination, but in different colours, different printers, different phosphor variations. Some have phosphor bands, some have phosphorised paper. The 1971 to 1993 standard Machins all have an X prefix on the Stanley Gibbons catalogue numbers. Everything I discussed today is using Stanley Gibbons catalogue numbers. I don't use Scots, I don't use anything else. I only use Stanley Gibbons for my British stamps. So the first batch of decimal Machins range from X841 to X1058, and they're in values from a halfpence all the way up to 75 pence. 75 pence was the highest value of a standard sized Machin. In 1977, the three stamps at the bottom of the screen there, the larger high values, were printed. So that was the £1, the £2 and the £5. As postal rates increased, as well as the £1, there were another 5 values added in between the £1 and £2. £1.30, £1.33, £1.40 and £1.50 and £1.60. They all have very similar catalogue numbers. They've got like A, B, C, D, E. I don't have those at hand, unfortunately. (1990) saw the return of Queen Victoria to the Machin stamps. It was the 150th anniversary of the penny black, and a set of stamps was issued featuring not just Queen Elizabeth but also the side profile of Queen Victoria, the image used from the penny black. And I think that's a really nice set, and it does reflect an earlier set from 1840, which was released to mark the centenary of the penny black, and that was the Queen's father, George VI, alongside Queen Victoria for that centenary set, and I've put those in at the bottom. Those are very easy to find. They're not expensive stamps. The 5 at the top, there are several variations on those, different colours, different printers. I think there's 12 of them in total, if you to get all the variations, but there are only those 5 colours and denominations. No value indicated, or NVI stamps. Now, these were first introduced in 1989, and the practice of these stamps still continues to this day. It's essentially issuing second and first class postage stamps marked as such. So it means that if you bought a book of stamps and the postal rate goes up, you don't have that annoyance of having to then attach, other stamps to make up the value. It retains its value, hence the no value indicated. It's the same model that the US Postal Service uses with their forever stamps. And this is, again, when a lot of other printers were drafted in to print stamps for the post office. We had you can see this one here has got the E, this blue stamp here in the middle row on the left has got an E as the value, or the NVI. That's a postage stamp for standard mail to Europe. They also introduced some other worldwide and Europe rates, and these had their own stamps. So you had worldwide postcard, you had Europe up to 20 grams, worldwide up to 20 grams, and Europe up to 40 grams, worldwide up to 40 grams. It was a lot simpler when we had those. Unfortunately, those aren't in use anymore when the rates are different. So we're back to sticking loads of numerical values on our stamps that we have to post abroad, on our letters that we post abroad. But yeah, these were printed by a combination of printers from Harrison & Sons, Questa, Delarue, Enschede in or however you pronounce it, in the Netherlands, and Walsall. I've listed the catalogue numbers on here for the NVI stamps: SG 1445 to 52, SG 1511 to 1516, and SG 1664 to 1672. And these stamps here are all covered by SG 2357A through to 2359. So you've got like 2357A and B, 2358 A and B, and 2359, which is the bottom four, and the worldwide postcard stamps. That covers those five. These are all fairly easy to find. As you can see, they came in different colours. Second class is normally blue. First class is normally red, but there are differences. There are first class in black. Again, probably a nod to the penny black. And we did have gold issues as well for a time. And if we move on, a closer look, number 3, and now this is looking at the 1993 changes to the standard Machin, and this is the elliptical perforations. So from 1993, the stamps started to include this larger elliptical perforation on the vertical sides of the stamp down towards the bottom. This was introduced as a security feature to prevent counterfeiting of stamps. How successful that was, I don't know. I don't know what. It's not something I've ever investigated, to how many stamps are, illegally counterfeit, and how those numbers were changed by these kind of features. The values on these type of stamps ranged from a penny all the way up to £5. So whereas previously the higher values had been the larger sized, the larger format stamps, you could now get up to £5 on a standard size Machin. These stamps all have a prefix of Y on their catalogue number in Stanley Gibbons, and their catalogue numbers are Y1667 to Y1803. Moving on to the regional issues. The home countries, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, had previously had Wilding stamps issued from 1958 through to 1969, and when the change was made to decimal currency, the stamp was changed to reflect the Machin design, and this was adopted by all three of the home countries. So you can see there I've got Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. I've got 3 examples of each, and they all have their own emblem. The Scotland Machins have the lion rampant in the top left, the Wales Machins have the Welsh dragon, and the Northern Ireland Machins have the red hand of Ulster with the crown. I've also put the Stanley Gibbons catalogue numbers on this slide for those. So the Scottish Machins are from S14 to S99, the Welsh from W13 to W82, the Northern Ireland are NI12 to NI88. Now the first set of stamps in those catalogue runs, so S1 through 13 are the Scotland Machins, W1 through W12 are the Welsh Wildings, and NI1 through 11 are the Northern Ireland Wildings. I think these are a beautiful set of stamps to collect. You know, the 3 striking emblems there. I think they're a really nice addition to the Machin catalogue. It's just something, you know, a little bit different. What happened in 1999, and it's not an issue that I'm going to cover today, is that the Machin design was replaced for the home countries. And rather than using the Machin design, the first, second and postal rates were then all depicting images relating to the home countries. It's a set of 4 designs that are spread across all the stamps, but I won't be covering those on this particular slideshow. I'll be doing those in part 2. So if that was something you were looking out for, please be patient. I will be showing those in part 2 when that gets released. So moving on from the home countries, there were also the Crown Protectorates, which also had wilding stamps from 1958 to 1969. Jersey and Guernsey both became postally independent in 1971, and therefore they'd already started producing their own stamps, and they never adopted the Machin design. One of the Crown Protectorates that did initially use the Machins was the Isle of Man, but there were only ever 4 stamps issued, and that's these 4 here: the 2.5 pence, the 3 pence, the 5 pence and the 7.5 pence. And as you can see, they've got their emblem, which is the 3-legged Triskelion in the top left. The Isle of Man did become postally independent, and they then began to produce their own definitive and commemorative stamps. Miniature sheets. Machins are also found on miniature sheets. Some of them are only found on miniature sheets, which is a bit of a bugbear for the collector. And these are things that I'm still trying to fish out of the catalogues. But these are just some examples of Machins that are, you know, released on miniature sheets. The Royal Mail Post Office miniature sheets all have a prefix of MS, unless it relates to one of the home countries, where they then have a WS for Wales, or a SS or a NS for Northern Ireland. But the standard British releases all have the prefix of MS. Now there's 4 designs you can see there. There's the 2000 stamp show with a new palette of colours. There's the 1936 Year of the Three Kings 70th anniversary with the £3 Machin. Then there's the Machin Definitive 40th anniversary that's got 4 stamps, 2 Machins, 2 commemoratives, one featuring the designer Arnold Machin and the other featuring the first Machin from 1967, that 4p that we highlighted on the first slide. And then finally you can see one of the 150th anniversary of the penny black stamps there, alongside a reproduction of the penny black on that miniature sheet. These are all easy to get hold of. They're not rare by any stretch. So if these are something that you'd add to your collection, I collect all these as well. And I think these do have a place in my Machin albums. And I think they're a lovely addition. So that's the end of my show for now. So this concludes my first video discussing the Machins and regional issues. The part 2 will include the self-adhesive security and data matrix stamps. That's the new ones with the barcodes, as well as the other self-adhesive issues. I'll also be just as I mentioned, I'll be discussing the change of the regional issues from 1999 to replace the Machins with the new imagery pertaining to each of the home countries. Please leave me a comment. If you think I've omitted anything from the content of this, then please do let me know. And any constructive criticism is welcome. I am new at this presenting lark, and this is only my 3rd episode of my channel, so if I have made a mistake, I don't care if you point that out to me, but please be kind. And I'm doing this for the enjoyment of the hobby. Hopefully some people will learn something from this. And if you have enjoyed, please give me a like. Consider subscribing for more content. I am looking at trying to get at least 1 video out per week. This is my 3rd week in a row now, so I'm not doing too bad. You can follow me on Instagram at John Collect Stamps, all one word. And thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again on the next episode, which will be coming next week. Take care and happy stamping.